what we've begun to realize is that the magic exists in the unknown, not knowing what the next thing is, not knowing how we're going to make a bigger impact. We didn't know that we were going to step into creating the Black Diamond Club and coaching service providers. That we didn't go to school for that. That was unknown, but the call was so big that it pulled us to do more. And so I just want to encourage people, if you have that tug, if you have that call, step into that unknown, because that's where all that magic exists. That's where that passion exists. That's where that burn exists, right?
Be open to the unexpected. I think, even in your field, we think we're down 20 points and there's only 3 minutes to go in the game. And we begin to tell ourselves that it's over, right? And as soon as we do that, then it is actually over. But if we have an expectation, like, no, I expect us to come back. I expect this to work. I expect if I hire Ben, I expect that my life is going to not 10x, like whoever coined that, that's a limitation. Why was it that? It needs to be like 9,462x.
You want to give me?
Because I expected that, because that's what Ben Newman delivered. Welcome to another episode of The Burn. I am Ben Newman, and I know you've gotten accustomed to this every single week. We're going to bring you stories of an athlete, entrepreneur, celebrity, individuals performing at their highest possible level who recognize there's an underlying burn. Why is not enough. There has to be a burn that ignites your why and your purpose, that then causes you to be disciplined on the days that you don't feel like doing it, and especially after you win. And today is a very special episode of The Burn because we have two individuals that are fueled by the burn, two friends of mine that are fueled by their burn, and two amazing individuals who both started in the world of chiropractic medicine. So we've got Dr. Lacey Book and Dr. Shawn Dill. And not only are they just doctors in chiropractic, they're like world renowned, right? So when you're world renowned, I mean, even Shawn here, it's the first time in the history of the burn, we have a guest who actually wrote the law for something related to medicine, really wrote the law for anything from his work in Costa Rica. So these are two amazing individuals, friends of mine, big thinkers, who didn't just take the chiropractic world and allow that to be a successful practicing career. They decided to take that burn and ignite a world of entrepreneurship, a world of coaching, a world of challenging themselves in order to figure out how great they can be. And what I love about them and our interaction so far, which we have to give an appropriate drop, so I'll let you guys start there with our great friend, David Meltzer. This wouldn't be possible. I don't think anything in the world is possible without David Meltzer. David is like the great catalyst of everything that is everything. But I got to meet Shawn and Lacey through just the friendship with David Meltzer and appearances on shows. And it's where I really got to see the flames of their fire and their entrepreneur spirit and just their energy for life. And so I welcome to the burn, Dr. Lacey Book and Dr. Shawn Dill. Thank you so much for being with us.
I was going
to say, we're going to record that.
That intro was great.
Forever.
We're going to use that.
Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. Well, thank you so much.
Before we talk about the Black Diamond Club, which is your coaching, before we talk about Ever Bowls, before we talk about Book Yourself Solid, which is an amazing, amazing story. How amazing is David Meltzer? I mean, is he not like the greatest connector of people in the world? Well, for me, literally, like my best friend in the whole world, and everybody always asks me, like, how did you meet David? And I just called it. We were on. I always joke we were on Office Hours, but not the TV show. Like, and I tell them that was like the minor league one, and it's no disrespect to anybody who gets put on Office Hours, the LinkedIn show, but that's where we were put.
Know you.
And
yeah.
I was like, we got put on the minor league show, and then I called him. And we had some things in common. Indiana University, both of our daughters, his daughters and our daughters went to Indiana University. I invited him to speak at an event, and then we just hit it off, I think, because we just have so much fun. I always tell people we find the same things funny. And so when we're together, it's always just a lot of fun. And so, and I think, that's one of his things, right? To help a lot of people make a lot of money and have a lot of fun. And I think that oftentimes people just forget about the fun part. We get so engrossed in seeing how much money we can make, and we forget to have fun every day. And that's what I really love about him is just the fun side.
And he truly is like a catalyst for connection. You said that word earlier, and he absolutely is that. And we love that about him because he's everywhere and he knows everyone, and he doesn't hold those to himself. He's always looking for ways to connect people for the greater good. So I love that about him.
Yeah, it really is a special characteristic. And, you mentioned fun, but like the two of you, every time I see you, you're smiling. I mean, it could be a big event that you guys are doing, you're smiling. We hop on here, we're smiling. I've been on your show, you're smiling. So you guys are having fun too. So you're doing something right. What is it after all these years of being in business and success? Because that's the thing that I think I really enjoy and attracts me to the two of you, and the energy that you bring is there's still this passion. Where does the passion come from? I mean, there's lots of success, lots of impact. I mean, just the impact around the world that you've made. Where does the passion and the burn still come from to this day?
I honestly think, and not to get too spiritual on you, but it's an opportunity every single day. It's like when you're a kid and you wake up and it's Christmas, right? You can't sleep because you're excited for the gifts that you're about to get. But I think sometimes as adults, we forget that, every single day we get this gift, and it's super cool depending on how you want to look at it. But I think that we lose that excitement to just wake up and we get to do so many things. We spoke to you about your consecutive streak of exercise. And I know a lot of people could be like, oh, I can't believe, right. But it's really cool that you get to do that. I'm sure there are people that are sick or injured that would love to be able to do that. Yeah. And so I think if you just looked at everything every single day as like, wow, look at all this. Like I get another shot at it. Even if you wrecked yesterday terribly, you get another shot at it. You get to try again. You get to do all these cool things. We're in Little Rock, Arkansas right now. Like, I don't know, maybe people will be like, I wouldn't have picked that. But I mean, we wake up and we're like, oh, wow, Little Rock, Little Rock, Little Rock.
And, I think the other thing for us too, I mean, we're so blessed because we truly do get to see the impact that's made on a lot of the individuals that we work with, and they tell us their stories and they share their stories. And I know that always drives us forward. But one of the things that I love the most, and I know that Shawn does too, is like the quiet impact, the stuff that nobody tells you and that you find out like years later about how somebody's life was shifted and changed. So for me also, I like to wake up every day and think about all the people that are having shifts and changes in their life that I'll never know about. And that just fires me up to be better and do more.
Well, that's a BJ Palmer quote, Ben, that from the chiropractic space, worth sharing to your entire audience, which is, you never know how far reaching something you may say, think, or do today will impact the lives of millions tomorrow. Just to have that opportunity, I think that's where, that passion and drive comes from, because you never know it. It might be just, it might be the person at Starbucks. You never know it. Everybody lives for like, oh, I mean, people will say this, I know, like, oh, you guys were on with Ben Newman. Oh, that's amazing, which it is. I mean, it's a super, tremendously and sincerely a blessing. But anybody who's like, I wish I could be on the Burn podcast. Yeah, but you could make an impact. Just go down to the grocery store and whatever it was that was on your heart that you wanted to share, you could share it with somebody, and it could make that person might share it with 1,000 other people. And you might actually make an even bigger impact by doing that one thing. We're all waiting at the bus stop thinking if we could just get on Oprah. But really, if we would just open our mouths and do something, we'd make a massive impact.
You just get on the burn. Forget about Oprah.
That's right.
Oprah. You can get on the burn. You can change the world.
So there's a couple of things I want to marry together here, because this is really powerful. And this is one of the things I love about the show, especially when there's a relationship behind the episode like we have, which makes it more special. I have been driven for a long time, and one of my former leaders who led me when I was in financial services, one of the greatest leaders I've ever been around, I talked to him about the concept of what I call immeasurable impact, which is really what you're talking about. And I remember he told me, he got so mad at me. He's like, it has to be measurable, and you have to be able to tell me exactly what it is. I'm like, John, we're going to agree to disagree. I'm fine to share something that makes a difference, and you may not even hear about it, you may not even know about it, but that's immeasurable impact. I think people who are driven by immeasurable impact, it becomes endless. There's no finish line. You just keep going, which ties me to this other point from something that you said, was when you embrace that one day at a time mentality, when every day is a blessing, which for me, my mom passed away at 38. I'm 44. So every extra day, I've got 6 extra years my mother never got. That's a blessing. I'm going to own mine. And so we share that in common. But I think that's what silences the seduction of success. And so many people, they get seduced by success and then they stop, right? They create a vacation that wasn't supposed to be a vacation because they won. And when I hear everything that you've all done, and I want to go back to how I started this, you guys could have stopped in chiropractic medicine with the expertise that you had, how people view you in that community. And that could have been it. You could have said, that's going to be our careers. But you decided to go on from there. So to me, I think it's one thing when somebody says one day at a time, but talk to me about not being seduced by success and how you've been driven to have this impact on all these other areas. Because I think it's fascinating because too many people stop when they get a little bit of success.
I think this is appropriate for you to share your story about when you were in Costa Rica and you realized that people didn't know.
Sure. First of all, I graduated chiropractic college when I was 24 years old. So I had a lot of naivety, and I understand that, if there's people in their 20s, mid-20s listening, I was just like you. I knew everything, right? When you're 25, you don't know everything. So knowing everything, I moved to Costa Rica. I didn't even speak a lick of Spanish because you don't need that. English is the universal language. And so my first year in practice was absolutely terrible. It was dismal. And I actually had to entertain thoughts of throwing in the towel and moving back to the United States. At the end of my second year, though, after 2 years in practice, I was seeing 225 patient visits a day. It was just me. And I was attending to 225 people every day, 5.5 days a week. And I was being paid in cash. It wasn't a lot. I was being paid probably equivalent to like $15 per one. But I mean, things are very cheap in Costa Rica. And I was like, man, I'm doing it, right? You're 26 years old. You're like, I'm just killing it over here. And I remember coming back to the United States for a homecoming at a chiropractic college and sitting out with a bunch of fraternity brothers of that chiropractic college and just realizing that Costa Rica, first of all, is a country of only 3 million people, 4 million people. I was on a nationally televised morning show, and that's kind of what propelled me to the success that I had. And I was a monthly guest. And I was like, wow, like I could go a lot of places in Costa Rica and people would say, you're the guy on the TV show. But when I came to the States, I was like, nobody knows what we're doing. Like I thought, and it wasn't an ego thing. It was like, we feel like we're making this dent, right? It's like, maybe even in your case, like you inspire so many people. And then maybe one day you're in Africa and people are just looking at you and you're like, hey, I'm Ben Newman, you know the burn? And they're like, what? and you have you get that feeling that like, wow, I'm not doing enough. I want to make this is very big. I think there's a line that happens between success, which you mentioned, and impact. And I think that a lot of people are driven because they want to make an impact. And the other thing that's very dangerous as an aside is that we live in a world that's always about impression. Like, hey, you never get a second chance to make a first impression. Yeah, but you get repeated chances to make an impact. And so if you're impression oriented, of course, the flashy jewelry or whatever it is that you think makes an impression, but if you're trying to make an impact, that is getting up every day. Even if you think you won yesterday, the impact is done. So there's more people to make an impact on today. And so that really, for me, is what drives.
And the reason I got to tell you, Ben, the reason why I wanted him to share that story is because I think there's so many people out there and people that we've talked to that they feel that tug, that pull. There's something inside of them that says, I can do more. I have more to give in a bigger way. And then they don't take action on it because beyond what they're doing is so unknown. And what we've begun to realize is that the magic exists in the unknown, not knowing what the next thing is, not knowing how we're going to make a bigger impact. We didn't know that we were going to step into creating the Black Diamond Club and coaching service providers. That we didn't go to school for that. That was unknown, but the call was so big that it pulled us to do more. And so I just want to encourage people, if you have that tug, if you have that call, step into that unknown because that's where all that magic exists. That's where that passion exists. That's where that burn exists, right? That's what propels you forward.
So I know the amount of impact that we're blessed to be able to have every single day and the number of lives that you touch through the Black Diamond Club and from speaking around the world and David Meltzer shows and all of these things. It's really incredible impact. And I think people see an example like yours and they say, yeah, but look how far along they are, So what I'd like to do, I want to pull it all the way back because you just shared this with me. And this is like what is so powerful because we're having these conversations with people every single day who are struggling with fears, doubts, uncertainties. Like, I just can't get started. So rather than looking at Lacey and Shawn now at where they are, let's go all the way back to you pulling pennies together to hire Michael Port for you to be able to learn his process, to book yourself solid, and then kind of give us that storyline of what happened when you scraped the pennies together, you got courageous, and you made a decision. Because I think that's important for people who are struggling with that first decision to hear how this really all started.
Well, I think you tell the story.
Yeah, this was probably, I think now 12 years ago, 2010. We were so broke that we were living in a 625 square foot apartment with 2 kids. It was 1 bedroom. We literally could not afford a mattress for them to sleep on. And so somebody had given us a hand-me-down piece, not even the whole couch, piece of a couch. It was part of a sectional. And our 2 girls shared that as their bed. Like, we literally didn't have any money. And I got to tell you, one of the hardest things in those days and in those moments were that at that time, Shawn and I had different thought processes and different belief systems around how money worked. I was always living in scarcity and lack, and he was always living in abundance. So this was a difficult time when you don't have a lot of money. And I remember you
guys wouldn't have been sitting close together. It would have been apart at the table rather than...
There was less smiles at that time. But the reality of it is Shawn always had this belief that the money could come. And I remember he came to me and he said, I know that you're not going to be liking this idea, but I just want you to be open. He was teaching at the chiropractic college at that time. He said, I've been teaching out of Michael Port's book, Book Yourself Solid, for a long time. And this opportunity came for me to be able to be a certified coach. And at that time, I think for the entire program, the entire thing, it cost $4,000. And I looked at him like, you are freaking nuts. Like, our kids are sleeping on this hand-me-down green couch. Like, we're eating top ramen. I don't even know, how are we going to make this happen? And I remember him saying, I think this is it. This is the opportunity. And it was in that moment that you have to dig deep and you have to say, when opportunity presents itself, it's in front of you in that way. Do I believe in us enough that we can take that opportunity and take us to the next level? Because if I don't believe in us enough, what am I even doing this for? Right? And I looked at him and I said, okay, we're going to figure this out. And let me tell you, we scraped, we pulled together, we cut back on what we ate and what we did and where we went and how much we drove. And we scraped together and made those $4,000 and lots of monthly payments. But we were willing to take the chance on us because we have always believed that there's no better thing to invest in than yourself. And that one opportunity completely changed the trajectory of our lives.
Well, if you fast forward January 1, 2023, I get a phone call from Matthew Kimberly. He was always the right-hand man over at Book Yourself Solid. And he was like, Shawn, I can't believe that I didn't even think of you, but I woke up on New Year's Day and I was like, Shawn Dill. And I was like, well, what are you talking about? And he said, well, I don't know if you know that Michael is looking to sell Book Yourself Solid, the IP, the program. And he said, would you be interested? I was like, well, yeah, I would totally be interested. Got on a phone call with Michael. You know me by now. I was like, I don't want this to be long and drawn out. I mean, if it's meant to be, let's discuss terms. Let's get it done. Whatever terms we agree to, I want it to fit on one piece of paper. And so then I just want to agree to the terms. And he was like, yeah, I want to do that. And so right now, as we're speaking, we're in the midst of a relaunch. So we're going to be relaunching the book in various verticals. We're going to have Book Yourself Solid for chiropractors. We're going to have Book Yourself Solid for financial planners. We're going to have Book Yourself Solid for coaches. We're going to relaunch the concept that they had before. We're going to create a massive community of service-based entrepreneurs that want to reach more people, make an even bigger impact, and create the lifestyle of their dreams. Like that's a project that right now we're super excited.
Yeah. And I think for us, even like it was such a full circle moment. Even to today, we're like, how did that happen? The very thing we couldn't afford is now the thing that we own. But it was a big life lesson for us because we would have never expected that we would own Book Yourself Solid. And I think for us in that moment, we were able to say, man, we need to be more open to the unexpected in this world. We need to be more open to the opportunity that the universe will provide us. In stepping into that, man, really doors just open all over the place. That was really powerful as well.
It's incredible hearing just the complexity of the story, right? Because some people, they live in their minds that there's this complexity that I build up and I can't do this. And to literally say I can, and to believe when you didn't even really have the $4,000 to allocate. And then really, 13 short years later, that's not a long period of time to have had all this success in between. And then this moment where they come to you, they could have called anybody, but you, right? The two of you were on the top of his tongue that day in January is absolutely amazing. And I say it's amazing, but is it really amazing when somebody believes in themselves and then decides to show up and work every day, right? Mm-hmm. And so I think sometimes people see your story, oh, it's amazing. And I think we just have to boil it down to it. And maybe we can just finish here diving in just a little bit deeper on belief, because now people could say, okay, now you really hit it, right? How important is belief still? Because like something tells me, I see these smiles, like it's the same thing. There's no seduction of success. Like you're going to go open Ever Bowls today, your second Ever Bowls, which is probably going to end up being way more ever, like, because you're just in pursuit of the impact. And so I think it's important. Number one, people have to start. You've got to believe, but then it's this insatiable appetite to keep going and have an impact. Let's maybe finish there. How important is that belief today, just as it was in 2010, sleeping on a couch in a 625 square foot apartment?
Well, for me, I'll go first. I do this a lot to David Meltzer, so I'll course correct on a few terms. I don't actually believe that it's belief. There are elements of faith, but if there's knowledge that the sun is coming up tomorrow, I do believe that, but I actually know that. I have faith that the sun is coming up. Now, I don't know how it works, but I can set my watch and take it to the bank that the sun is coming up tomorrow. I know that if I step off the top of a building, I don't have to believe in gravity. I can't actually say, you know what? I don't believe in gravity. And then I just levitate. Gravity doesn't care. The thing for me is that I think that as human beings, we create limitations in our minds that stop us from being able to fully see the truth about how the world operates. We limit ourselves on two main areas. One is our health. These are two passion areas for Lacey and I. We think that we are fundamentally programmed as human beings to be sick, and that we just begin this journey from birth to see what pills, potions, and lotions we can take to keep us from getting sick, versus understanding that by default, we're made to be healthy, and that things happen to us that interfere with our ability to express that health. If we remove that interference, we'll express health. The same thing in success, though. We are created as human beings, every single person listening and watching, we are created to be successful. But we do a lot of garbage to interfere with that success. We tell ourselves nonsensical stories. We surround ourselves with the wrong people. We engage in behaviors that detract from our ability to make that impact. And everybody at the end of the day, we're all paid proportionate to the amount of impact and value that we bring to the world. Every day I'm surprised. I'm surprised that my heart keeps beating while I was asleep. I wake up and I was like, wow, I didn't stop. But I'm also surprised that I look in my bank account and I'm like, and the money didn't either. Like overnight, money came in and I didn't have to punch in and punch out. What I had to do was I had to wake up every day and just continue to pour value into the world. And I'm always just amazed, is a good word, at how little I thought was possible. So every day I readjust. I'm like, okay, well, obviously, and Lacey and I do this as a couple. Well, obviously, 100 million is possible. Well, obviously, 500 million is possible. Well, if you think 500 million is possible, so you just begin to expand what the universe, if you're a God believer, whatever you believe that is in control of that sun and your heart and all the things we don't know how it works, that it's bigger than what we think. And I always tell people hey, Ben, do you have an idea in your head when I say God, or if I say the universe, do you have an idea in your head of what that is? And people say, yeah. And I say, well, it's not that, right? Whatever you were thinking, it's way less than what it actually is. So expand your thought process. And they're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's good. I'm going to expand. And I'm like, right. So you're like a fraction of the way there of what it really is. Like the understanding is that we never could fully even attempt to comprehend what's possible for each and every one in our lives. And so what we do is we just step into it and we're like, let's see where it goes. And you'll be shocked.
And I think that that's what it is. It's a knowingness that everything that you desire and can have is already in play for you. It already does exist. It's just figuring out how to remove the interference that you put into that process. And one of the biggest things that I have learned is to trust that knowingness. I mean, look, I'm human, right? Whenever those thought processes creep in where you're kind of like, well, I don't know if that's achievable. I don't know if I can have that. I don't know if I can do that. I always ask myself, whose narrative is that? Because it's actually not mine. And then if you just continue to know what you deserve and what's already out there for you, then you can just go after it.
I think for a close, we can just lock these words into the listener's mind. People might listen to the podcast and apply constructs. People work with Ben directly. Sure, a lot of people reach out to you, Ben, and they're like, oh, I did XYZ thing that you talked about. I started to exercise my discipline. And then they say a result. I doubled my income, to which I would always say, what did you think? What did you expect was going to happen? Because the fact that you're saying this, like you're surprised, well, see that then whatever outcome you got, you were limited because you're shocked at that. Let's set our expectations to the moon. People will say, yeah, but then we're going to be disappointed. No, we're not, because
expect the unexpected.
But the time is the factor as well. Who knows in what time frame? And yes, be open to the unexpected. I think, even in your field, we think we're down 20 points and there's only 3 minutes to go in the game. And we begin to tell ourselves that it's over, right? And as soon as we do that, then it is actually over. But if we have an expectation, like, no, I expect us to come back. I expect this to work. I expect if I hire Ben, I expect that my life is going to not 10x, like whoever coined that. Like, now that's a limitation. Why was it 10x? It needs to be like 9,462x.
You want to give me?
Because I expect that, because that's what Ben Newman delivers.
You guys are so awesome. It's the energy. What you just mentioned, Lacey, the knowingness and how you both just explained exactly what that means is so powerful. And if I could add certainty with knowingness, your story provides the certainty that if you believe that the knowingness is there, I mean, talk about the unexpected. I'm going to say it one more time. 2010, 625 square feet, 1 bedroom, raising 2 daughters. Who would think 13 years later, but you expected that would happen because there was a knowingness that it was already in you. And I've said for years to individuals here on the Burn, people that we've coached with, everything you need is already in you. But I think what you've expressed today, and I'm so grateful for, is the encouragement for everybody to go take it and do something with it, one day at a time. Dr. Shawn Dill, Dr. Lacey Book, thank you so much for your friendship. Thank you for getting me to stretch my thinking today. There are some things, a little perspective that I hadn't thought about. And that's why I love relationships like this, because it's iron sharpens iron. So thank you so much for coming on to the Burn.
Thank you.
Rock. Thanks, Ben.
Well, I can't wait to be able to share in these show notes all of the ways that you can stay connected with all of the incredible things that this energetic, powerful, always smiling couple is doing, so that you can see the next thing that they're going to do, because I think you just realized they just won't stop. And that's what the Burn does. Please do me a favor. I don't ask this every single episode. I know some people do that as part of their podcast strategies. Share this episode. I don't ask every week, but I'm asking this week. Please share this episode with somebody who needs to have a little more knowingness in their life, that everything they need is already in them and it's time to go attack it. Thank you so much for joining us on the Burn, and we'll see you next week.